Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Deep Conversations Only. I am so excited for today's episode because on every 28th July, we celebrate World Nature Conservation Day. And I wanted to bring someone who breathes love and compassion for nature and its creation, who breathes sustainability, who walks the talks, and someone who has really inspired me in my personal journey and has helped me to become a better, more aware, and a more compassionate consumer. I am so privileged and honored to welcome Miss Nayana Premnath on the Deep Conversations Only. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you get updated every time I post a new video.
Hi, Surbhi.
Hi, I am so grateful to have you. Thank you for accepting the invitation. It's a privilege, and I'm sure that this conversation is going to create so much impact on the audience because I know that you've changed my life in a good way. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. And that's so very sweet of you to say, Surbhi, because it does make my day when I hear such kind words, and it makes me keep doing what I do, even when I feel like, okay, is there any point? So these kind of words so much works and helps me out. So thank you to you also.
Please never think that whatever that you're doing is not good enough or is not creating a lot of impact. I personally know that I have changed my life, and because of the transformation that I did, my family has also started being more aware. And so see, we are creating this beautiful cycle,
Cycle.
and that is what we
Yes,
need. So
definitely.
we definitely need you. Mother Earth needs you, and the whole world needs you and your work.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So, my first question to you would be that if you can give a background to the audience about how your journey into sustainable living started and what exactly does it mean, even.
So for me, sustainability basically just means to live in alignment with nature without causing unnecessary destruction, without causing too much litter to the nature, and to just live sustainably with nature so that you are at par with it and you're not causing any other kind of issues. So for me, it's just simple way of living, and I think as an Indian, we used to have those roots very deeply beforehand, but I think in the last few decades we've just destroyed those roots. We've been going away, and I think people like me are just trying to bring back those roots that we had in a ancient period. So I think it's what I do for that. And for me, my journey starts basically, what can I say, for me it's something that is not usual for most women. So for me, it started with a menstrual cup, which is something which is very I think a lot of people are very surprised when I say that, because that's usually the one of the hardest things for people to shift to when
Yeah.
they join this journey, and it becomes a very eventual kind of
Yeah.
a step for them. For me, this was
Yeah.
the first thing that brought me into this whole zero waste living, because
Yeah.
I found this in some random YouTube video, and as somebody who used to use a tampon, I wasn't very intimidated with the cup. So
Yeah.
I was like very curious, like, what is this thing? I've never seen it, I've never heard of it. And I even asked my mom, like, why didn't she tell me anything? She's like, she's never heard anything about this.
Yeah.
So I was very curious. I went on this rabbit hole in researching what this was all about. And that was what led me to the whole word zero waste. And I believe at that point, zero waste lifestyle was not popular in India at
Yeah.
all. And I'd never heard any other YouTuber talk about it.
Yeah.
So at that point in my YouTube journey, I was just a fashion and beauty YouTuber, and I thought that was what would get me views. And so I
Yeah.
used to make those videos
Yeah.
without really enjoying, really. So at this point, when I started using the menstrual cup, I saw how much of a change it brought me. For me,
Yeah.
the amount of waste that it reduced, I could not understand why nobody else knew about this. And for me, I
Yeah.
had to share it with the world. And
Yeah.
at that point, I was very, very scared because I didn't know how my audience back then, at least the ones
Yeah.
who used to expect fashion and beauty from me, would take that, because they've never heard of it themselves. And I just took a lot of faith
Yeah.
and just put out a set of videos on menstrual cup, and it didn't do extremely well or anything, but it actually got people talking. And
Yeah.
the kind of conversation that started gave
Yeah.
me that sort of a push to sort of completely shift my channel to sustainability. And
Yes.
I'm proud to be able to say that I've been one of the first ones to start on just sustainability in India. And
Yeah.
right now, 2 years later, I can see so many people who are starting on this, even YouTube, as sustainability educators. And it's so great
Yes.
because we need more and more and more people to spread the word around. So I think it's
Absolutely.
been a great journey, and I'm very, very pleased to see how people are all taking in this whole sustainability these days.
Yes. I'm so glad that you shared that experience, because even for me, the journey of sustainability started with menstrual cup. And I remember watching one of your very like the first video of your
Yes.
series, and I was
Yeah.
so inspired, and that was the turning point of my life, I would say. I can't even begin to tell you how grateful I am for the discovery of menstrual cup. It has changed my life. So anybody who's watching, if you have apprehension about menstrual cups, we are not trying to promote it. No brand is paying us, but please try it. It is great for environment, and it is great, fantastic for you. So thank you so much. And also, on that note, I'd like to ask you that, when you began, of course there must be people who would always say, how does it even matter, and how much of a difference one person will create. But now we see that, you've created this beautiful community, and one after another, changes are coming in just not one person's life, but a family's life, and so on and so forth. So, how do you think that, does it even matter? I know it matters, but I want you to tell the audience that how much does it matter?
So for me, that whole thing started because when I put out that set of videos on menstrual cup, one of my friends who has like sort of like a reading room back in my hometown, she
Yeah.
invited me to do a workshop on the menstrual cup over there. I was terrified. I was terrified because I expected almost zero audience to come except for my friends there. So I did not expect anybody, but to see like over 20, 25 people, including men and including school students, came
Yeah.
there with their parents to listen and understand why it was important. And even men were
Wow.
there to try and learn so that they could pass it on to their females. So it
Wow.
was so inspiring, and I was scared. I was very scared in the start, but at the end of it, when I saw that everybody was already ready to just shift immediately, that was so inspiring because until then, in real, I had never seen that change. I mean, there is always the
Yeah.
virtual change that is
Yeah.
happening, but when you see it happen in real, it makes
Yeah.
you know that there is things happening. And
Yeah.
on that day, around of the 20, I think around at least 10 people who were females must have changed. And from that 10 people, I've heard them tell me that they have shifted other girls in their circle.
Yeah.
And that is like something that makes me so happy because now when I think about it, I don't know how many hundreds of women would have gotten to know about the menstrual cup from just that one workshop of mine.
You've been a revolutionist for a lot of us. I must tell you that, you were speaking that you would want to probably try, an activist, being an activist or something like that in the future. You were saying probably, it could happen as a natural progression. But I want to tell you that you've been a revolutionist in our journey, because I know this fact very, very clearly. Because when I started using menstrual cup, and few other things, started carrying my own bag, and my own bottle and my own dabba and everything, I saw a visible difference in other people's life. And I also saw that my family, who always held all of these things really really precious, like this was a thing in our family that you would always carry your bag, but somewhere, past just 2 3 years, it just got lost because how fast life has become. And they also really got back to it, and they were like, this is something which we should take care of. And that's what really made me happy. And when I look at my younger sister, I have a sister and she is in sixth standard. So she's in a very impressionable age. And when I look at her and she scolds people, like she really gets to people that, please don't litter around, keep it with you. And I feel really happy. And a lot of that credit goes to you. So thank
Oh
you so
my God.
much.
Yeah, I mean, these kind of moments when I actually hear from somebody, because
Yeah.
otherwise I don't know, I don't get to know what is like how I
Yeah.
have need some change for somebody else. So when
Yeah.
people message me or write comments, those are the
Yeah.
only tangible replies or the
Replies.
tangible difference that I get to see. So it
Yes,
makes a
absolutely.
huge, huge, huge difference to me because it makes me keep going.
Yeah, I can absolutely understand that. Also, on that note, I want to ask you that can you tell us some facts as to why do we actually need to do this? Because the urgency of it, so that it gets conveyed to the audience. For that reason, I'm asking.
So I would say climate change is the main factor why we are trying to do this. And although we used to think that climate change is something in the distant past, as we
Yeah,
see the news today, we see that it's already happening. There's
happening.
no waiting period for us to make changes. It's
Yeah,
already happening all around the world, in our country, and we're seeing it in real scale. And it's not even in small scales that it's happening. It's happening in
yeah,
really bad conditions. And we see
yeah,
floods happening, we see cyclones, we see earthquakes, so many
yeah.
different things. And these are ways of our nature giving us an answer of what we have already done. It's
Done.
basically
Yes.
punishing us and making us understand that you need to keep check. And
Yes.
our journey is to try and do that. And it's not something that, as individuals, it's not the easiest thing to do. And but as we individuals start opening up about this, the
Yeah.
real change makers are not us. The real change makers are the people who change policies, people
Authority.
or the government who changes the policies, the ones who are the bigger companies that make the most amount of waste. We're not the ones who make the most waste, we're just people who make a substantial amount but not the most. So
Yes.
our voices but are still very very important, and once we get on this journey, we try to voice our opinions, we try to make companies and the government questionable. And
Yes.
it is then that the government will have to make changes to itself. Right now I see so many brands, big brands, which are trying to make changes because they know people are not going to be forgiving in the future.
Yes.
They know they need to shift immediately because nobody is going to listen to any excuse. And
Yes.
that is the power of each individual making changes, because that power leads to the actual people who can make the changes. And I
Yeah.
think as an individual, we each of us, through our daily changes, have that power to inspire and get those changes made.
Done. Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, I wanted to ask that how does veganism help in the whole climate change process?
Okay, that's a very, very controversial question, because people always get very defensive when people talk about veganism. But the dairy or the animal agriculture, let's just take animal agriculture, which includes the dairy industry also, because
Yeah.
it's not something that's only caused by the non-vegetarians, because even the vegetarians are equally responsible for it. So when you
Absolutely.
take the animal agriculture, it's basically the second highest cause of climate change in the world. Because when you look at it, a lot of forests are deforestation happens because of the grazing and everything for the cattle, and a lot of crops, a lot of agriculture is made especially for the cattle. So people usually say that when vegans talk about their journey, people usually firstly ask us, but then soy is something that is being that causes deforestation. Soy is causing deforestation, but the soy is basically being grown more for the cattle than for humans, for their feed, for the cattle feed. So that is another thing. And the even laughable thing is that cows or goats, these animals produce their own amount of methane, which is even worse than carbon dioxide. It's a even more lethal gas to when you compare it to carbon dioxide. So that is why the amount of what do you say, the carbon emissions is increasing when it comes to the cattle industry. And then
Yeah.
this is just when it's connected to climate change. But then
Yeah.
veganism is not just about climate change, because veganism is a kind of lifestyle where you're trying to avoid any kind of harm to
Violence.
any creature, to any animal which is sentient. So sentient means something that can feel its pain, that can feel pain and will suffer. So we are trying to avoid any kind of harm to sentient beings. And the thing is, unlike what people believe, in India, uh, almost 70 to 80% of our normal traditional meals are already vegan. And that's
Yes.
something people don't know and don't realize. So when
Yes.
people say, "Oh, you're vegan, so are you eating grass and vegetables?" We're like,
Yeah.
"No, we're eating dosa, we're eating idli, we're eating poha." Oh,
Yeah.
then they're like stunned. Okay, those are all vegan. So they don't
Yeah.
realize that all of
Yeah.
our, like almost majority of our traditional dishes are all vegan. And going
Yeah.
vegan is, in a way, we consume a lot of like food. So when you reduce that impact that you're creating just by eating meat or even dairy, because if you look at it, dairy industry is basically existing, and because of that existence is how the meat industry exists. Because obviously the dairy cows,
Yeah.
when it gets old, it can't just be let off. It is taken to the slaughterhouses where they are made into beef. So unlike what Indians believe, India is the second highest, biggest exporter of beef in the world, right after Brazil. So Brazil is where they say that the Amazon rainforest is being deforested for the cattle. But in India, we have the second highest amount of beef, and India is the largest consumer of dairy in the world.
World.
It's the
Yes.
biggest consumer of dairy in the world. So you can imagine how many crores of animals we are breeding just for that, just for the milk and then the subsequent meat.
Yeah.
So that is the amount of animals that we are breeding, and by breeding these animals, we are causing a lot of carbon emissions, which is the reason for climate change. So
Yes.
veganism has a very very high role in trying to control the amount of carbon emissions that you create, the footprint that you have. And you will it's something that people think is very hard to change, because I was a very hardcore non-vegetarian. So randomly, I just turned into a vegetarian, and 6 months later, I turned into a complete vegan. So it's not as hard as people think. It's just that mind block again, which, and especially right now in India, so many brands are coming out. So
Yes.
many, over 50 of them are delivering in all through India. So if you have
Wow.
over 50 brands doing that, then I don't know why people say it's not very easy to get vegan
Yeah.
products, because it's actually easily available these days now.
Yes. And even with the price point, if people, come up with that as an excuse, I think you should follow, first of all, Nayana, because she creates some amazing, entertaining, yet informative reels. Apart from that, I think something which I've realized is in the whole zero waste and more sustainable life, you save so much money. Like, you
Yes.
would be amazed at the amount of money that you save, and then the better choices that you make would always be great for your health as well. Because when you think about it, even in the ancient India, each house had its own cow. And in a family nobody consumed 2 to 3 times of milk or dairy products,
Yeah.
paneer and buttermilk and everything. It was supposed to be consumed,
Balance.
yeah, in a way where it was a very wholesome process, and it was a coexistence, right, between the cow and the family. But these days we see that we are not breeding cows at our home, right? We're not taking care of animals like our own, and then we're consuming double the amount in a sedentary lifestyle. So it is just not great for environment, but it is great for your body as well. Even if we are not asking anybody to go vegan, but all we're trying to tell you is give you facts so that we make a better aware choice. And apart from that, what I'd like to say is that you know as in India, you spoke that it is so easy to make the right choices, that it is easier than any other country. In USA there are so many people these days who are going vegan, but it's so tough there because their lifestyle is based on consuming meat so much. But in India, most of the diet that we have is actually vegan, and it's not a big issue. You I don't know, I don't
But would
recommend
you be
it as a,
surprised to
yeah.
But would you be surprised to hear that we are basically following this whole tradition from the US?
Yeah,
Because
that,
they started this whole vegan journey. They
yeah,
started it. They have insane amount of vegan products. So like
yeah,
they have vegan products which taste exactly like meat, which is at
yeah,
very
yeah,
low prices, that anybody who wants to go to KFC can choose this
yeah.
instead of that. So they have
Wow.
so many choices, and they used to have this back like 5-10 years back. They started this. So this
Yeah,
veganism started in India also earlier, but it was at a very low scale. But now around 1-2 years, in the last 1 or 2 years, India has also started recognizing veganism, and we are I mean, it's growing so fast that this
yes,
is one of the big, fastest growing sector right now. I feel it's the
yeah,
fastest growing sector right now, and everybody is trying to get into it and create more and more products and more options these days. And I think
yes.
in the coming years, it's going to be even easier to get than ever before.
Absolutely. I'm waiting for that time. I'm not currently vegan, but I consume dairy very, very mindfully. I don't consume dairy unnecessarily. I don't consume food unnecessarily because I realize that, even if you're consuming plant-based food unnecessarily just for a sense gratification, even that is some kind of violence that you're doing, because ultimately life is life, but at the same time we cannot harm ourselves. We are also life, we are also soul, and we are as much part of the nature. So it is important for us to sustain ourselves, but at the same time it is also important for us to be mindful about how much harm are we actually causing to other living entities. So yeah, thank you so much. And also I wanted to ask about clothing, because clothing is one of the
Okay.
major culprits. So how does that
Yes.
impact?
So clothing is again, because of the major problem over there is fast fashion. So
Yeah,
I think everybody now realizes that they've all heard the term fast fashion. It's very popular, and I think in the last 5 years or so is when it became a boom in
yes,
India, especially. It was such a boom
absolutely.
because all these fast fashion brands like Zara, H&M, Forever 21, all of them just landed in India, and it just
Yeah,
everybody went wild.
wild,
And on
yeah.
top of that, we have brands like Shein and Romeway and all, which is online, which is
Urbanic,
even worse. So those are not
yeah,
even fast fashion, they are called this ultra fast fashion
fast,
because they are extremely cheap.
yeah,
Unlike say Zara or H&M, they're not as cheap as we would like it, and
yeah,
Shein is extremely cheap, which makes it sort of like, what do you say, disposable. The whole
yes,
problem is that
yes,
it's like this, the clothes become something as simple as disposable, where we just throw it away because, oh, it's just 300 bucks, what's the big deal, I'm bored of it, it's not trendy. So another problem
yeah,
again is because of social media. I think around 5 years back, people, women especially, would be shamed if they wore the same clothes for each photo. So everybody needed more and more clothes to wear for more and
Yeah.
more photos and photo shoots. So nobody wanted to be seen in the same photo in their
Yeah.
profile. So
Yeah.
those kind of things have been influencing how we like see fast fashion, and we find it's more convenient for us. But the problem is
Hmm.
that we don't realize that there is never a possibility that you can get jeans for as cheap as 300 rupees. How does that happen? Like the cotton that is grown to make that jeans, the transportation that happens to move it around the places, the price that you need to pay for the tailoring of it, the manufacturing, the production, the whole thing, and finally at the retail unit, how can one get it for 300 rupees? That is
Yeah.
impossible. That is where
Hmm.
the kind of loss goes not to us, because we are looking for discounts. All of us are so discount oriented that as long as we get
Yeah.
our clothes cheap, we'll keep
We
buying
don't
them.
care.
And
Yeah.
even if it's like, well, I've seen, I mean, even I've been a culprit of it. I am not
Same here.
denying I was also a culprit of it. I used to have one or two hauls in my channel earlier, but I'm very embarrassed about it now. But thankfully I couldn't afford fast fashion like Zara and H&M back then, so I could never
Yeah.
afford that, and I quit the whole thing before Shein became popular in India, so I'm thankful for that. So
Yeah.
but then the whole problem is that the kind of the material, basically these fast fashion brands use mostly unsustainable material like polyester,
Polyester.
nylon and all, which is basically
Yeah.
plastic. At the end, it doesn't decompose. It makes a lot of microplastics which leaches our soil, and then the water that they take to produce these things,
Yeah.
the water that is taken, and they don't even recycle it to make sure
Yeah.
that they are doing something to make their business sustainable. They are just putting it out as a pollutant into the ocean. And then the kind of dyes that they use, mostly they don't use any natural dyes, they use mostly a lot of
Yeah.
artificial or toxic dyes, which are again harmful for us, for the people who are working in these factories. And the fact that these factories are basically even known as sweatshops. Sweatshops meaning where they don't get any kind of incentive. They have to work for such long hours at very low pay. They don't get maternity leaves, they don't get proper breaks. Though they usually work 15 to 18 hours a day, and for very negligible money. So that is what is called as sweatshops. And these Zara, H&M, Forever 21, all of these go for these sweatshops because they can save money. And that is where they are able to sell you these products for so cheap. Remember that
Yes.
even when they sell it for that cheap, they're always making a profit. They're never selling it to you without a profit. So if they're selling you for 300 rupees, it should have cost them way lesser than that. So that's the whole thing that nobody thinks about. So you can never get if you are buying a cloth and making something from scratch, you will realize how
Yeah.
expensive it gets.
Yeah.
So just like that, any clothing you cannot make it cheap. And the fact that these fast fashion brands also create more and more pieces every single week. So for
Yes.
I think for Shein, this I think in April or April this 2021, uh, there was they made 10,000 new products per day. Per day.
My
Yeah,
God.
that is the amount of the unnecessary production that they have. And that is what leads to these mindsets of more, and everything is like it trends for 1 week, then the next week it's not trending anymore. So previously,
Yeah.
like a decade back, we had 4 seasons, which is summer, spring, autumn and winter. But now we have seasons throughout the year. We have every week new seasons, so
And
which is
Black
what
Friday
these
sales and this
fast.
sale and that sale.
Yes. And earlier we used to think, okay, once a year we'll have sale, we'll wait for that day and we'll go and buy everything. Now we have sales
Yeah.
every month. Every month we have sales. Even in Flipkart, Amazon, every online store we have sales every month almost.
Yeah.
So I think it's just because of this overconsumption that these fast fashion brands have produced in us to make it feel like, and right now nobody's even going out that much. And if even then, Shein made a huge profit in 2020, even when people were all sitting inside their own homes. That is the amount of consumption, even when we are not even consuming those. We're not even using those
Yeah.
products, and yet
Yeah.
we still just feel that need to buy more and more and more and more. It's that tendency that these fast fashion brands have created, and it's gonna take a lot of willpower to stay away and be not be tempted towards those products at all.
I can vouch for that because I know when I look at those pretty heart neckline tops and those dresses and all of those things, and I used to be one of those people who used to buy a lot of stuff and who used to buy a lot of dresses, and it almost became a joke in my family and in my friend circle that how many clothes does she need. But I realized over a period of time, and it took me a lot of, I think, spiritual strength, because for me it was more about, it was also just not related to the kind of of course, the harm that we are creating to the environment, but also looking at mother earth and other creatures as part of god. And I was like, if this is what we are doing to other brothers and sisters, this is not worth it. And I personally realized that the reason why I think a lot of us have gotten into this vicious cycle is because a sense of purposelessness that the generation is facing, because of which we constantly need to gratify ourselves through these little joys. If
Yeah.
you look at a monk's life, if you look at somebody who has not even a monk, even a billionaire who has a strong purpose, he would not care about his clothes so much, because it doesn't matter, there's so much more that you have in life to look up to, that clothes hardly make any difference in one's life. you know and That's what is something which is serious, and something which we should address, that why is it that our happiness depends on a piece of cloth, which we know creates so much um, anxiety, so much unhappiness in someone else's life. So we need to prioritize and really reflect back as to where are we heading as society, the kind of consumer patterns that we are creating, why are we creating it at all. We should understand the psychology. These agencies and these companies make good use of the psychology of consumer, and we are becoming oblivion to it. So it's important that we understand that
Yeah.
where is this sprouting from,
Yes.
right?
Very, very, very true.
Yes. And so I'd like to
And
ask
I
you
think
that yeah.
another thing is that right now in India we have a lot of thrifting options, which is basically second hand. So
Yeah.
second hand is something I remember back in 2015. There used to be a thrift app, thrifting app back in 2015,
Yeah.
and at that point I was one of the very first 100 customers they had. I remember being the first 100 because they even messaged each of us to
Yeah.
say thank you for purchasing and all that. They were very personal, but then it grew insanely. So I have
Yeah.
sold my own dresses, I bought second hand, and at that point it was nothing to do with nature or what the harm was happening. It was only money, because
Yeah.
I had no money to spend on new clothes. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm selling mine and I'm making some money, and then I'll spend something on something which is cheaper.
Yeah.
And but nowadays we're seeing that there are so many such options where we can get really beautiful stuff for almost a very small percentage of that actual price. So there are
Absolutely.
so many thrift shops that are happening, but the only problem that I foresee in the future is that this thrifting also will sometimes become consumeristic, because
Yes.
again people have that tendency to keep buying more and
Yes.
more and more without any check on how much they're buying. So whether it is thrifting, second hand, or anything, if we don't control that consumeristic mindset in ourselves, that can also lead to a destructive future. So I feel like
Absolutely.
already a lot of people are taking advantage of this mindset, even in the thrift community, because
I
I've seen
agree.
lots. There are hundreds of thrifting shops just on Instagram now, and that
Absolutely. Yeah.
only exists because of the fact that people are realizing, okay, I don't want to again, not because of the nature or the problems that is happening, but because it's cheaper. So
Yes.
everybody at the end of the day wants cheaper clothes, and
Yes.
whether it's a fast fashion brand or a thrift shop, they'll go for the cheaper ones. And that doesn't change the whole mindset and the consumeristic consumption of ours. So unless we start addressing that, even thrifting can be a huge problem in
Yeah.
the future otherwise.
Yeah, and as you rightly said, this is where I personally feel that a sense of strong value needs to be established, and a spiritual value needs to be established, because I feel that we are famishing spiritually, we are undernourished, and because of which these material things are just grabbing our attention, grabbing our consciousness so much, because there's no greater joy unless you develop a greater taste towards something. You will not be able to let go of these smaller things in life, right? That is, it holds you back. So now that you have a purpose, now that you want to speak for sustainability and zero living, because there's this strong purpose that you have found for yourself. So unless we get a strong purpose as to why we are doing what we are doing, I think it will just keep coming back to us in different ways. And I think a fundamental change in the consciousness of people is something we
Has to happen.
genuinely need, and we need more spiritual activists also, so that the amalgamation of these two things will become so powerful that it will be inevitable for people to not change.
Let's hope that it happens, because it needs to happen very, very soon.
Yeah, I think with the coming generation, I also feel very positive, because with social media, people are more aware also.
Yes.
If it has made us, extremely consumeristic, it has also somewhere, because of social media, I could follow you and learn so much from you. I could change myself, and so many other lives were impacted. So I think if we will keep speaking about it, also on this note, it reminds me of Saloni, because Saloni spoke about minimalism a long time back when she started her channel, and she was also one of those very few people who spoke about minimalism. And that is, I think, what we need to keep in mind, that how much at the end of the day does it even matter to hold back. So yes, I think it was absolutely fantastic for you to explain it in such a beautiful way. On that note, I'd like to ask you that when you decided into this lifestyle, what were some of the major challenges that you faced, which are either existing right now as well, or have become completely done with, or have reduced to a great extent?
So the first, I think the roadblock that mostly everybody sees is that is from the family. It's always from the
Yeah.
family, which hurts us the most. Because if it's
Yeah.
from a stranger, it doesn't hurt us.
Yeah.
The problem that we have is that we assume that how we see things so clearly, how we see it so clearly that it's the need of the moment, we expect them to feel the same way. We expect them to see it the same way. And we don't
Yeah.
realize that they are their own individuals, and they may take their own time to understand this. And maybe they may never come and become a complete part of this journey, but it's their own life and it's their own choices. All that we can do as an individual is to lead the way and show them by example. So I used to try and push my family, push my husband, my mom, my dad, everybody to make these changes. But I
Yeah.
realized that the more and more I pushed, the more and
The more
more they held.
resistance.
Yeah,
Yes.
that resistance is always greater when you push more and more. And once
Yes.
I realized, okay, this is not working, I was fed up, I was so frustrated. I'm like, okay, I'm just not doing this more, because it's giving me headaches. So I'm just gonna ignore it completely, and I'm just gonna do it for myself. And that time I wasn't even realizing it, but I just did it because I didn't want to take more like headaches on myself. But
Yeah.
the moment I started stopped doing that push and started just doing things by myself without asking them, or even sort of giving them like that sort of push once in a while, without doing any of that, I saw changes happening right in front of my eyes. So I would see randomly on a very different day, my sister would call me and ask me about, okay, what is the laundry thing that you were using? I want to try use it too. I'm like stunned. Like I did not
Yeah.
expect anything of that sort from her. And
Hmm.
recently she's like, okay, I bought those wooden soap dishes that you had. I'm like,
Oh.
okay. So these are changes
Yeah.
that we don't realize is happening with them, but it's
Yeah.
happening. And when they have doubts, they'll always ask you and ask you for help. But without you
Yeah.
even knowing, they may be making those changes in their own life. And I
Hmm.
saw my own husband, he's been doing more than I've ever seen most other people do. Because
Wow.
over here we have a dog, right? So when we started when we adopted our dog, we used to I used to get those something called as a poop scooper, which is basically like a plastic bag where you used to scoop the dog's poop and then throw it away. And this used to give me a lot of tension, because that's just plastic waste which is just being thrown away with poop inside it, which is never going to decompose or anything. So this used to give me
Yeah.
a lot of stress. So what my husband suggested is that we used to have this small dustpan at home. Like I got a metal dustpan. So he used to
Oh.
take that while walking, and he used to scoop it up and then cover it with a tissue paper, bring it back inside the house, and then flush it down the toilet. So these are things that I didn't think I would do, and he
Yeah.
started doing those things. So these
Wow.
are changes that we don't realize that is happening, but it does happen. And as long as you stay true to your value, you stay true to that principle that you are sticking to, people will follow, because this is a genuine, there is always a genuinity behind your changes. So
Yeah.
once people recognize why this is so good, people will also want to make those changes. And once they see how easy it has been for you, then they realize that, okay, maybe I should give it a try, and I'll see if it's easy, I'll change. If not, fine. So
Yeah.
when they make those changes, they realize it's not that hard. And then
Yeah.
it becomes a part of their life too. And it's as
Yeah.
easy as that, but it is definitely the hardest when you start, because people, just random people, won't matter for us when they question us, or like they make fun of us. But when our
Yeah.
family makes fun of us, or questions us, or doesn't agree with us, or is against this lifestyle, that hurts. But it
Yes.
just needs us to realize it's our journey. There is no way we can push them. Once you follow it and you learn to be happy the way you lead your life, then you will
Yeah.
realize that eventually it will be different timings, because some people may
Yeah.
take years, some people may take months, some even just weeks. But you need
Yeah.
to cut them free from your what do you say, expectation. Once you stop
Yes.
expecting them to make the changes, they will slowly do it in their own pace.
Yeah. The key takeaway from here is, I think, inspire change, don't impose change. I think this is what
Yes.
is important for us to realize, that each one of us have our own journey. And whenever we try to bring about any change in other person, there's some kind of resistance, because the more we try to push, the more defensive the person gets. That's how human mind works, I think. So it's
Yeah.
important for us to realize that, to take a step back, to give the person this space and the thought process with which they can make the decision for themselves. And something which is also important here is to never think it is all or nothing, right? This is, I think,
Yes.
one of the major problems that we all face, that whatever that we might do in life, either we are in it or out of it, right? There's
Out of it.
no
Yeah.
middle ground, there's no balance that we can strike. And I think this is a
Yeah.
struggle, but this has to come into understanding that even the little changes that you bring, it makes a huge impact. And more than that,
Mm.
it's better to do something than absolutely nothing. um, Also,
True.
I just wanted to ask you that I'm sure you must have come across a lot of people. So that's why the question, that there are some people who know what is the right thing to do, but even they would agree to you, but there's this, they don't have the enough energy, I think, to put in the effort, to do
Mm.
the little thing, going out of their way to make a difference.
Mm. Mm.
A, why do you think that is? B, how can we inspire again? I think inspiration is the answer. We can only do our bit and just leave it on to them.
So the first reason is the only reason is convenience.
Yes,
Basically, we have all been leading a very convenience
convenient life.
based life that for most people, like for the majority of people to get outside that convenient zone, that comfortable zone that we've all been living in for so long. That we've been conditioned to believe that this is the way to live.
Live,
So to
yes.
get outside that comfort zone is very hard. And that is mostly the reason why, even say, most people know that it's very easy to just, we all have so many cloth bags at home now. Every household has so many cloth bags now. And
Hmm.
yet people still forget to take it out when they go grocery shopping. They still
Yeah.
forget, and they bring back a plastic or even a new cloth bag, even when they already have several of it. So it's just that mindset that they don't, it doesn't strike them like, oh, I need to take that, I need to carry that. The even that money, extra money that they need to spend doesn't make much of a difference. So over here, the problem, the change can only happen if the money that they have to pay becomes extremely high. Because if it becomes high, so same as how we sort of when police will give us a
Fine us,
fine,
yeah.
the more the fine, the less tendency we have to do that offense. So the same
Yeah.
way, if businesses start making these bags, these plastic or cloth bags more expensive, then they will start thinking, oh, I don't want to pay 20, 30 rupees extra. I'll rather
Hmm.
just take my own cover. But as
Yeah.
long as they see it as a very five rupee thing, it doesn't matter. So that is the only way these kind of people who are so held back by convenience, that they don't realize that it's the line is very thin. The line is
Yeah.
very thin outside of that convenience, and if they just step out, it's not even going to be that bad. So they don't
Yes.
realize that, and that's holding them back. So this is where sort of these communities or societal norms will need to be made to make those small changes. Because otherwise, like how we already said, there's no way we can push them or even talk them into it. All we can
Yeah.
do is tell them this is not happening, this is what you can do, and leave it at that. If they don't
Yeah.
listen, we can't do anything about it. But
Yeah.
this is where even these things, because people who are into convenience is only going to do it when it's like cost them a little bit more. So
Yeah.
even when it
It
comes
causes
to
them some
say,
kind of other inconvenience.
yes, exactly. So when there is
Yeah.
another inconvenience, then they'll think of, okay, I'll do this. So it's
Yeah.
only then that the change happens. It's the same technique that our traffic police does. So unless we make those fines higher, just like how they make it higher, unless you make that inconvenience higher, people
Hmm.
won't change their mindset of being inside that convenience area.
Yeah. Okay, wow. All right. So on that note, I'd like to ask that what are some of the practices or tips that you would like to give to the audience, and some small things that they can start from, which does not need to cost them money or does not even have to cost them a lot of effort, just a little awareness that can bring a huge change.
So again, like I already mentioned, just taking your own bag.
Cloth
Just
bag.
keep one or two cloth bags in your own bag. The bag that you always take when you go out, always keep one or two in your bag. And if you have a vehicle, if you have a car or a bike, always keep one inside the vehicle also. So that even if you forget, you'll always have it with you, no matter what. And then another thing you should definitely do is take your own bottle of water whenever you step out, because
Yeah.
all of us have enough of water bottles inside our house. So
Yeah.
when you're going out, especially if you're somebody who drinks water quite frequently, who gets thirsty very fast, you have to take a bottle of water wherever you're traveling, wherever you're going. Just take that one bottle of water until you reach a place where you know that you can get another glass. But unless you are somebody who needs that water, I mean, for me, I'm not somebody who drinks a lot of water, which is, I know, a bad thing, but it's something I can adjust. I mean, if I'm traveling for a while, I don't get thirsty very easily. I can always go to the destination and get my glass of water there. So,
Yeah.
but for a lot of people, I realize that they need to constantly have some water every now and then. And the
I
problem is
always
that
have my
when they,
water bottle with me.
yeah, so when they get their that that feeling, they easily go and buy those plastic bottles,
The
which
steels, yes.
at the end they throw away, and it goes into the landfill mostly. So this is a very simple thing. Just a little mindfulness is all that it needs. Just have a bottle of water, because even our railway stations and places, airports, and everywhere we have they have this stations where you can go and fill your water bottle. So they have a lot. I mean, the government has given you the facility, so if you're not using it, then it's all on you. The fault is yours. So when they are providing you that facility to even fill up your water bottle, then it's just your fault if you still don't go out with a water bottle. So this is one thing. And another thing would be something I don't think we can practice right now because of the situation, but I think more people need to take public transport, because
Yeah.
right now, again, convenience has brought the fact that we need Uber or Ola every time we go out, and mostly we don't even do the sharing. So sharing is
Yeah.
still a better
Better.
way than going as a single customer. But right now, I know it's not possible, but hopefully in another new normal, hopefully
Yeah.
people should start using public transport, metros or buses more often, because that is a huge way of creating an impact. And when you're traveling also, try taking a train anytime. It's obviously cheaper for you, and always better also, because flights are very high in carbon emission. Even for a person, it's so high that even going by road on the car by that person itself is lesser than going in the flight. So just one person going in a car by themselves is much lesser than that person going in a flight, even though the flight has so many people traveling with inside, and it still is much more higher the impact. So that's why going by flight should be like only when the distance
There's
is
no
too
option. Yeah.
much, only when there is no other option but you have to go by flight, only then you should choose flights. But again, that's again nowadays it's because of convenience, time and
Time.
convenience. So you need to be there fast, and you don't want to rest and take the time to travel to a place. So that convenience is something again which we need to like sort of get out of. So I think these three things are ones that you can do without any cost for yourself, any extra cost for yourself, and will definitely have some impact. And it will also have an impact of sort of inspiring others also. When if your family is saying that okay, we are going in a flight, and you have your own, say you're going on a journey, and you tell them like, this time for myself I am choosing to go in a train, I don't want to go in a flight. Or even if you're going for a trip with your friends, if you have more people in a car, the carbon emission reduces considerably well. So when you go just one or two persons, instead if you take two or three others also with you, then the carbon emission that car makes will be much lesser. So just being a little mindful about how you travel and how you go out with your water bottles, and having one plain cotton bag, or any bag, even plastic bag, if you have it with you at all times, that is very much ideal. Because I've had times when I've needed to buy
Yeah.
something in the middle of my anytime I'm outside. I may never have planned it, but we all have unplanned things that happens in the middle of a day, a normal day. So it's always ideal to have that bag with you at all times.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was honestly, I'm genuinely feeling so grateful because you have done a lot which has to be done on a huge scale alone, and standing your ground and taking that extra step, because honestly I know that I have been that person who likes to stay in their convenient zone and does not want to take that extra step. But when I hear such examples of when you take the dog out and that extra thought, it really inspires me and really gives me a reality check as to how much am I doing and how much am I giving back to the society. So thank you so much. I mean, I'm really stunned and also at the same time a little embarrassed because there's so much that needs to be done, and you've started this revolution, as I say, where I know that in coming years there will be this huge change that the country and hopefully the world will be going through, and we will make a lot more better choices and give back to mother earth in a very good way. And I think that will also help us not have this calamity, like this thing that we have, and so many other disasters that we often see. I hope that people understand that this is nature trying to make us understand, as much mother earth is very compassionate, but at the same time a mother needs to teach her children, and that's what it's doing. So you have to learn the lesson,
Right.
and the sooner the better.
Yes.
So we are actually already late, so please do it.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Nayana. If you have any, if you at the end of the podcast, if you would like to just say few things, if you can go ahead.
Okay, so I would just tell anybody who's starting their journey today, if they're starting their journey today, just don't be intimidated by so many things that happening, every things that everybody is doing, and don't feel embarrassed. Like how you said you're embarrassed, don't be embarrassed, because even the smallest step that you're doing is going to make some change, and that will inspire others to make their own changes, and together we will be able to do a lot more than we would if we are doing just one person. But that one person is the one who starts that impact. And how you told me just that 2 years ago when I made that decision to start out this whole sustainability sector in my YouTube channel, and to see that impact that it has already created, that tangible impact that I see in front of me, it makes me so happy. And to see that so many people are going to be starting, and to start, nobody has to do everything. Just one step at a time is all that's enough. And on the way, you will learn more and more. And like how you said now, you've learned so many more things that you feel like you have to do or want to do, not have, want. If you want to do more, you there is always the time to do more and more and more. So this is basically like a journey where we are learning more and more things. Even for me, I'm still learning things that I need to do more and more. So for all of us, there is always that learning and that knowledge that we need to imbibe. And I think in time, each of us will be an eco warrior for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. For anyone who wants to learn a lot more, then please go ahead and follow Nayana. I will link her Instagram handle and her YouTube channel in the description below. And I will also post the timestamps for you guys, so that you can go through the video as per your choice. So thank you so much. Thank you for accepting my request, for giving us your time and your wisdom. I am extremely grateful.
Thank you, Surbhi, for having me here and even thinking of choosing me for this, because that definitely is a huge thing. And to hear from you, this has definitely made my day because of such kind things that you said. So I'll just be very, very happy for an entire day now. So thank you so much for giving me that opportunity too.